Quakers say, quoting George Fox, our founder, that we do not offer what we say as a rule or a form to walk by. That is, we don't speak in terms of rigid rules and unchanging law. We don't think of the Bible like that at all, or really of anything like that. If you think of the Bible as a rule book, then you're going to fight about it, because it's about allocation of power. And the interpreter is always claiming power by saying the Bible says you can do this, you must not do that. Well, Quakers do not like to think that way. My name is Sarah Ruden. My meeting is Friends Monthly Meeting of Middletown, Connecticut. And my work is that I'm a translator, a poet, and a journalist, and a lecturer. I've always thought of my scholarly work and my literary work as needing to fit in with Quaker principles. And my concern the whole time is to make this literature speak to as many people as possible. I think that's very important in the present political situation with our divided culture. The great age of the translation of the Bible into English is late medieval period up through the Renaissance and beyond. So we have great Bibles, great English Bibles from that period, particularly the King James Bible, the Geneva Bible too. They are magnificent works of literature in themselves, and they represent a very advanced degree of scholarship for the time. There are two problems, though. One problem is the fear of God. And in the Puritan mind, in the Reformation mind, fear of God is very important. And that makes for a rather flat style. So when you have, in Greek or in Hebrew, two really distinct words with distinct tones and functions, you might find them translated in the exact same way in English, so that the flavor of that text is not extant. It's just not there. And that's particularly the case with humor. Puritans played a big role in Bible translations, and reformers like Martin Luther were not really big on humor. But the Bible is, the authors of the Bible were hilarious. They really enjoyed composing these texts. You can tell, and they had gorgeous nuance and expressiveness. Let me give you an example that I find really helpful, and that my readers and listeners have told me means a lot to them. In the parable of the Good Samaritan in the Greek Bible, in the Greek Christian Bible, the Samaritan, who's just making his way along the road, minding his own business, he sees the man who has been robbed, beaten, and left for dead. And this man is not a Samaritan. Just look at him and tell. So this is not the Samaritan's business, and he should just continue on his way. But he doesn't, because he feels pity for the man, and that's a special verb for pity. He feels it in his guts. That's what the Greek means. In this case, he feels it in his guts. Oh no, I can't go on, because it's as if somebody has, beaten me about the head and shoulders. His suffering is in my body. So he goes far out of his way. He spends lots of money. He takes all the risks of this, cultural context to take care of this man. The ordinary Greek word for pity is the pity that the powerful feel for the weak, in a sort of condescending way. So a suppliant comes to you, and he, grabs your feet, won't let go. He wants something, and you, as a powerful person, usually grant it. It would be primarily out of embarrassment because you can't get away from him. He puts you on the spot in public. That's another kind of pity. You have another word. So my attitude is you have to distinguish when you translate. You have to then show how very, very special the parable of the Good Samaritan is in the Bible, how new and shocking this is, that you step over your cultural boundaries because God has grabbed you by the scruff of the neck, and he has made this person's problem your problem. You really don't have a choice. You are urgently called to help. So that's just an example of how I think the Bible should be translated to make it more accessible and more meaningful today.
Thank you for watching this QuakerSpeak video. We release a new video every Thursday. We'd like to thank Friends Homes for sponsoring this one. As a Quaker-affiliated retirement community in Greensboro, North Carolina, Friends Homes provides an active and meaningful retirement with its plentiful amenities and affable residents. Its walking trails, indoor pool, arts and crafts room, woodworking shop, and more allow you to live life to the fullest. Visit friendshomes.org to learn more. Thanks again for watching, and have a great Thursday.